Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, and it is a gloriously late Tuesday morning over here from once again a dark and dreary Helsinki, Finland. Never gets light here, which is actually perfect for me because I am in the content creation mode right now. And with that said, plenty of videos to come out in the not so distant future, which I'm rather excited about. And with that said, let's put the folks over here in the Krownchain application, which you found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We do see that open interest actually coming down about 300 million from yesterday to today, as we were right around that 4 billion marker. And what does that suggest within the context of the current price action as Bitcoin does come back down to the low side of the range? Well, that would suggest that we have a little bit of profit taking coming on, which would make quite a bit of sense when basically everyone who's ever fucking bought Bitcoin over the last few years, or perhaps even just over the full history, is in profit now by about a $3,000 to $4,000 margin at the very worst. So with that said, people taking profits, pretty damn stock standard for that. And now we have yet again another medium-term time frame consolidation going on, and that is going to be the main thing to be focusing on, for the next week or two to come. With that said, the Bitcoin dominance also heading up from yesterday to today, as well as Bitcoin did have a nice downside move there, about a $2,000 move on the day since we started the recording. But keep in mind that a $2,000 move doesn't really destroy the range. Actually, the medium-term range did hold. The short-term range was broken, obviously. Yes, that did drive our targets down lower to 21,500 about, of which got front ran a little bit right there. Now Bitcoin popping back up, and on a 12-hour daily, you wouldn't even be able to really tell that, or obviously if you look at the wicks, you'd be able to tell, but more importantly, holding the range at, as it was, as we spoke about on the Forex video a little bit later yesterday. On top of that, we see the Fear and Greed Index finally coming down below 90 to an 88 from a 92. Quite nice right there, and into the data tab we go. And is there anything of particular interest right here? Very interesting, actually. The futures premium over spot price action continues to increase. Very fucking interesting right there, actually, as that would suggest that the market is still pricing in a more or less healthy consolidation right here, which the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. And as we'll look at soon enough, the trend is still very much intact, at least on the higher term timeframes. Looking at the funny rate, what do we see? Coming down quite aggressively now, finally, as all major exchanges are pretty much hanging out at 0.01%. Again, don't let the graphical representation fool you. These are all very low for what it's worth. Most exchanges are around 0.01, and FTX and FEMEX 0.03, 0.04 respectively. Not anything too crazy right there. So with that said, is there any announcements that I want to get out before we go into it? Yes, don't buy anything. Don't buy anything right now. Sale coming in tomorrow, to the 23rd. What day is it? It's 22nd. All right, yeah. Hey, there you go. Save yourself a few bucks, and if you are the type of person who's going to be investing anyways, it'll be 20% off of everything as we typically do, and we'll be running it for until the end of the year, basically. Anyways, with that said, it's time to go into the actual price action charts themselves, and let's follow up on yesterday where we left off. So yesterday, well, do we want to do that, or do we want to start off right here? Yeah, let's actually start off where we left off yesterday. So yesterday we did have a nice little trading range between about 24,000 to the upside and 22,600 to the downside, of which that was broken, driving targets down lower to the 55 exponential average on the 4-hour. I was saying about mid 21,000. Looks like that got front run a little bit. Also based that downside target off of, what was it, our fib retracement right here, giving us about the 618 coming in right around that region. A little bit lower than that, of course, but at the end of the day, close enough is close enough, as I do kind of line it up with the last prior high. Yes, there we go. Okay, lovely. And there you go. Yes, right around the mid $21,000 region. Target was essentially front ran, and then back into the range we go on the medium term timeframes. So what does that equate to now? How have things changed after that? Also I should follow up after the Forex video as well. Yesterday, Forex video, we did say, we were looking at this dump right here. I think we were right in the low $22,000 region, and we did say that Bitcoin likely to pop back up towards the low $23,000 region. I said 23,200 or 23,300. Looks like we got 23,318. Actually, not so bad right there. Every once in a while, that TA bullshit works, doesn't it? Anyways, now as it stands, because Bitcoin has regained this level right here, I actually have pretty much the same thing to say about this. Now, with that in mind, the short-term timeframes are starting to shape up as being a little bit more bearishly infused right here. We are in the context of a little bit of a short-term downtrend on the hourly, that is. But hey, we haven't had a short-term downtrend on the hourly for quite some time, so I suppose it does matter a little bit. Same thing with the buy hourly as well. And I would be looking at this as likely to give another swipe to the low side of what we saw yesterday, somewhere maybe a little bit higher than that, into the low $22,000 region. So anywhere around the 200 exponential average right here, I do think is rather likely today. today. However, again, that doesn't necessarily imply that we're going to actually break the range. As you said, this is only relevant for the short-term time frames. As long as Bitcoin's closing, especially 4-hour dildos above this 22,600 pivot right here, nothing really changed right there. And while we could get a wick lower, I'd be looking for something that something similar to what happened as yesterday as well, where you get a nice aggressive buy back up. And with that said, we need to go into the secondary charts right now, because I do want to be on record as saying this: the buy daily, or sorry, let's go to the buy daily right here. Yeah, no, the triple daily. Yes, that's it, because it is closing tonight. Yep, 23rd confirmed. Okay, beautiful. This is going to really drive my biases for the rest of the week, essentially. And remember that the weekly did close above the topside shoulder band last week. This does look like continuation, for all intents and purposes. And if we go over here to the 3-day, which is closing today, you can look at that as like a half weekly, essentially. And if we do close below the topside shoulder band, which is currently hovering around 23,450, which you could essentially look at as the range for the short-term timeframes, both yesterday and now again today, then I would be looking for a little bit more sideways action here. Still would be bullish on the whole, but I would be more inclined to be looking for potential breakdown all the way back down to maybe even $20,000 low, or 20,500-ish region, wherever the 9x moving average is right here. Now, with that said, if Bitcoin does close this 3-day dildo above the topside shoulder band, again 23,450, then I would be looking for this trend to continue upwards and onwards throughout the rest of the week, implying new all-time highs. Technically speaking, we already got new all-time highs on this 3-day dildo, to be fair, so it's kind of already operating as such, but I would look for further continuation of the upside, essentially if that condition is met. Now, again, if it closes below, that is not a death sentence, but it would imply at the very least Bitcoin does play out a little bit more sideways on the medium-term timeframes, and then there will be a very likely an easy trade opened up here. And now I'm going to make a few assumptions here, and this is going to be further expanded upon in the Forex video, because we'll be closer to the actual 3-day closure by then. But let's just say that the 3-day close is something like this, below the topside shoulder band, but still is more or less a little bit of profit taking, and within the context of this trend right here, consolidation essentially. Well, as long as we are below today, or not today's, but this 3-day low, the one that is the one that is currently in progress right here, which is 21,800, then I would look at this as essentially a basing point, meaning that if Bitcoin does come back down below, and even just tick below, doesn't need to close below, but just ticks below our current low of 21,800, and check your exchange because it will be different. If we look over here on GDAX, for example, it's 21,913.84, then I would be looking for a greater pullback. That's at the point where I do start to target another about $2,000 move to the downside. As just as an aside here, one of those weird market things is, one of those things that always just got repeated like ad fucking nauseum, was this: the way you go up is the way you come down. And the way that we went up above 20,000 was all fucking air, from 20,000 all the way up to about 23,000. So yes, if Bitcoin does break yesterday's low, even just by taking below it, I would be looking for basically a move all the way down to the 20-cent moving average right here, which on the daily, I should say, on the daily specifically, and that would be in the mid to low $20,000 region. So yes, we are talking about a $2,000 move if that were to happen. But first and foremost, I want to see that actually be confirmed first. As it stands right now, this is still an uptrend. I mean, yes, we did confirm a high right here, absolutely. But as long as Bitcoin's essentially above 18,000 bucks, you do have higher lows. That's the problem when you're dealing with big numbers, because technically speaking, we could come all the way back down, like I said, 2,000 bucks, and that wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary here. In fact, that would be just considered a retest of the prior breakout, and an obvious opportunity. Now, of course, going back to the 3-day over here, I just look at this as a backfill as well. So, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily bearish on the higher term timeframes, even with that $2,000 move to the downside yesterday. It is certainly a possibility that we could see further price action to the downside, but the pivotal areas are very well documented right here. So I feel quite comfortable with that. And I do want to take a quick moment here after reading some of the comments yesterday, in the day prize as well, just kind of like reiterate the relevancy of higher term timeframes. Remember, when I'm talking about a higher term timeframe, or just any time frame for that matter, the analysis is standardized for that time frame. So if I'm talking about a daily, things are probably not going to happen that day. It's probably going to, it's probably going to take, 3 to 4x that time frame. In the case of like a 3-day, that's going to be, a week and a half to maybe even 2 weeks. If we're talking about a weekly, we're talking about, maybe 3 weeks to a month of price action, and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting sometimes because I'll be talking about a weekly saying, hey, very likely targets up here for continuation, and then lo and behold, you go through the comment section and it's like, you were wrong. It's not going there today. It's like, that's not the point. That's you're judging a fucking you're judging a weekly analysis on a 1 hour dildo. It's not going to go well, sir. So I just want to remind people, if you are new here, keep in mind that is always going to be the narrative. And of course, if you are new to trading and this is just new to you, in general, then go into it with that sort of a mindset, because sure, certainly I will get things wrong, absolutely. And if you've been on this channel long enough, you see me get things massively wrong, but there's always a contingency and always a differentiate between short-term, medium-term, and higher-term time frames. So I hope that that's clear for the people who actually happen to give a fuck and happen to actually put a little bit of effort into hopefully understanding what I'm saying, which I understand that also I don't do the best job of communicating myself as well. I do take a few liberties with just assuming that most people within this community are on a little bit more accustomed to nuance. Yeah, accustomed to nuance. So understand that. If you want the spoon feeding bullshit, there's plenty of people out there for you. Although I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, while we're on here on the 3-day, so I do want to talk about this because there is actually a legitimate chance for a decent pullback here if that prior condition was met, because we do have a few other things in the cards. With the way that the 3-day DMI ADX is looking like right now, we do have potential bearish divergence in progress between this point and this point. And this point was all the way from our high at around 19,000 bucks a few weeks ago. So with that in mind, if this gets confirmed as a local high right here, which again would be very obvious if we close a 3-day, something like this, and then we take out the 3-day low on the next, successive dildo, or if we go down to like a daily and we close like a daily below 22,000, probably does it as well, then I would be looking for that divergence to play out. And I would be looking for a quick move down to about $20,000 base, maybe a wick lower than that, but ultimately on a closing basis, I'd be looking for that area to get tested. So with that in mind, there certainly is a way forwards for some nice downside right here, but still, I do remain mostly bullish on the higher term timeframes. There's nothing bearish about this chart right here, and it's as far as its trend goes, same thing with the 2-day, same thing with the 3-day, weekly's continuation as far as I care. I mean, there's nothing bearish about this for me. So if Bitcoin does trade sideways a little bit here, I would still be running with the former narrative that it's likely to lead on to new all-time highs. For the rest of December, I'd imagine, and the monthly obviously right here as well, looking pretty damn girthy as it is. So I do think that that's important to reflect upon because it does sit in the bias. And while I would be looking at the low term timeframes to likely produce a little bit of a downside move here, I actually do think that Bitcoin likely does come back down and swipe below 22,000 bucks. Let's just check out what we're looking like on momentum oscillators right now. We do see that 4-hour Stokes are nosediving, Krown disrespecting the Joule signal over the weekend, and Krown pays for it, and Krown talks to himself in the third person, which is even worse. But to be fair, this one actually did happen on Monday, not over the weekend. And these signals over here, well, to be fair, they would have given you a better entry. So you know what? That's just me being a little bit too conservative. But yes, did give a decent signal right there, and that was your dump dildo from 24 all the way down to a little bit more than 2,000 bucks below that. Not bad. And also some bearish divergence accompanied by that along the way as well. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4 stabs on Caretaker's RSI. So fair enough on that one. Historical volatility percentile is redlining right now. So what does that imply? It does imply that we probably do swipe again to the downside, but I don't think that Bitcoin's actually necessarily ready to break it. I'd be looking for a contraction phase to go on, and a contraction phase would imply sideways consolidation. And in this case right here on the 4-hour time frame specifically, your range is going to be about 22,600 to basically 24,000 to the upside. Right around and if you're just looking at this from a fib extension perspective, it's going to be the 2-spot extension right here and the 2-spot 414 right here. It's still more or less the same as far as that goes. And I want to see if these go for the bullish reset, of which I would still interpret this even on the short-term timeframes as the bullish reset as far as momentum oscillators go. The reason why I say that is because we didn't really break range here. So yes, $2,000 move is pretty damn impressive, absolutely. But as far as the greater narrative, does it change anything? Not really, at least as it stands right now. Let's go through the 3 hour and see what this one says as well. 3 hour Stoch's already popping back up, rejecting the bearish control zone. I don't see any. Actually, yes, we do see a trend line here. In fact, we do see this trend line coming in from this region right here. And this has gotten our low since December 9th. And let's see what that's correlated with. So that would be this low right here, this secondary low right here. Both of these in accumulation phase after a little bit of a dump off from the overall consolidation phase. Sounds a little bit familiar as well to what we're doing right here. So yes, short term probably does test again to the downside. However, I'm not necessarily looking for that to actually break. But that could still be an easy, like, I guess $500 move from where we're at right now, or $700 move, in fact. So fair enough. Anyways, going on to the buy daily right here, or sorry, the buy hourly right here. What do we see? We do see buy hourly Stokes flip flopping around a little bit. Same sort of trend line, kind of holding it up, but under a bit more pressure. Historic volatility percentile here as well, getting incredibly red. So it does seem to me that the lower term time frames are more or less likely to trade more or less sideways within the medium term time frame range, and probably does test the downside of again. And if I had to guess right now, somewhere between about 22,200 to 22,300 is where I'd be looking towards. But I would be defensive against that wick being bought back on up. I'm really not bearish here as long as the structure holds, even on the medium term time frames. Looking at the hourly, yep, downside does look, does look a little bit frothy here. Another move back down to the 200 exponential moving average is certainly not out of the question. Hidden bearish divergence, it looks like we just printed right here as well, or maybe working on, as this could be confirmed as a local high soon enough. And momentum also is turning down here as well. So I would be looking for this to, extremely short-term timeframes come back down, and then I'd be looking for probably bounce around this region. What is this right there? Why is that? Is that a little dot on my screen or something? Who knows what the fuck it is? Sorry, getting distracted by my own charts here. But fair enough. I wouldn't call a break of range before it actually does happen. So there you go. And technically speaking, this would be a descending triangle after a nice little dump. So it would be a short-term redistribution pattern. If you're looking at it something like this, which we could make a measure move for, and because the ranges are so fucking massive right now, that is nice, actually nice. Going to be pointed down towards actually right below $22,000. So that'd be between the 200 exponential moving average and the 200 simple moving average. And I would be looking for a bounce around there. And then if that wick gets bought back on up so that it closes back above our current pivot at about 22,006, then I would be looking for the range to hold and probably test back up towards the mid to low $23,000 region. Now, of course, the upside resolution for this formation is still very much the same at $24,000. Need to see a 4-hour delta closure above there, but as you can see, we're kind of in the twilight zone for Bitcoin right now. So I'm generally just, if that condition were to be met, I generally have the next level set out as areas of interest, but there's not really anything major in our way just yet. The 2-spot 618 is a big one. The 3-spot 618 is a big one. Everything in between is not actually. So while they do beget a little bit of short-term time frame interest, especially as the bots and algos are going to be, likely playing off those levels, I wouldn't be looking at them as like major stopping points actually. So for reference, that would be the 27,500-ish region right here. And the 2-spot 618 is 24,500, basically our current high. And you could look at that as more or less a better resolution point to the upside as a 2-spot 414, technically getting our current highs, but I would be very defensive against like another pop back up here, put in another slightly higher high right here, and then come back down, because that technically would fulfill the prophecy of the TA. No, that's a terrible way of thinking, but basically it would print new all-time highs, yes, and that would be that is a profit taking zone for a lot of algos. So I would be very defensive against that, at least on the first pass. And if Bitcoin does get above it, then 25,000 is the next obvious psychological target, but it's not really lining up with anything else. And on top of that, these areas probably do get some short-term play, but realistically, I'd be looking towards 27,500 actually, if that condition was to be met. But right now, it does seem like Bitcoin's found its medium-term time frame range. We probably trade sideways here for a little bit of time. I wouldn't be surprised if if we're still here by the end of the week, and then give another try to a trending move coming into next week, most likely. Anyways, let's go through the medium-term timeframes as it is right now, and what do we see on the 12-hour? 12-hour just, again, there's nothing really inherently bearish about this chart. Still higher lows as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't mean that we can't have short-term downside moves. Absolutely yes, and in fact, we just spoke about the likelihood of one to the next downside, but as far as trend goes, I like it. I still like it. Call me crazy. 12-hour Stochs coming all the way, coming back down below the critical zone right here. But typically we do see a bounce around that region at first. I wouldn't be surprised if we just create a range on the 12-hour between 22.6 and 24. I mean, that's, we're likely to get wicks below, just like we've gotten wicks above. But it looks well, 12-hour RSI is a little more on the bear side for me, actually, to be fair. So could break here. Could very well break. Let's go see what the 12-hour looks like on this chart over here. No, we're still using the 20 symbol to kind of buy off of, so fair enough. Yeah, I don't really have much to make out of this. More sideways is probably the name of the game, if anything. Let's see. What about the daily right here? We do see daily Stochs technically coming down right now as well after getting into the most critical zone of critical zones. And we do have bearish divergence now actually confirmed on this one. These signals right here, though, I typically don't like, though. However, that would imply a move. Yeah, that actually would imply a move down to your mid $20,000 region. Would like to get some scalps in around there, most likely. And historical volatility percentile on the daily finally ticked red for the first time in a while yesterday. Now, I do look at red as likely to produce a little bit of sideways action on the higher term time frames. Let's reference the last time that we actually got this was back on over here on this consolidation for about 2 to 3 weeks, or yeah, about 3 weeks actually, from 20,000 all the way down to 16,000 or 17,000. The time before that was on this major low right here in on the coronavirus dump. Time before that was obviously $14,000 high in 2019. Time before that was on the the $3,000 low after the big bad dump in 2018. So this is starting to get a little more interesting here, yes. But I do want to see one other thing. Hold on, Mr. Spliv actually called this one out in the Discord earlier today. I just want to make sure that I get this right. Mr. Spliv, I want to call you out right now because you did something good, and I forgot exactly what it was. Was it with the 3-day or the daily that I'm looking for here? Come on, baby. Show it to me. There it is. Okay, found it. Yeah, it was a 3-day. Okay, so it wasn't the daily. It was 3-day. All right, sweet one. All right, so let's go over here to the 3-day. And what I want to show now is the 3-day jewel, actually. So the 3-day jewel, we do see that the slowest moving part of this is actually in the critical, or almost in the critical zone right now. And what I want to show is that anytime we have seen, or let's go to a longer term chart. Yeah, anytime that we have seen, and I'm referencing the white, we could just think of it as an oscillator, though technically that's not fully true. Getting into the critical zone, anytime that we have seen that in the past, that has been not necessarily the best. Now, we can live above that region for a little bit of time. For example, right here, you do see that it enters in on the 3rd of December, and I just know off of memory that the big bad dump, the $20,000 high, was put in on the 17th. Let's see where it actually comes back down. Early January, late December right here, and it does top out and switch the slope right here. So while I do think that it is a warning signal, I want to see now the slope on this change to a downside slope, and that's likely going to be actionable. We see the same thing right here, just barely brushing it. Same thing right here, just barely brushing it. And by the way, these are major highs. Let's just reference this. That's going to be right here on this high. That's going to be right here on this high. And these are both, pretty phenomenal pullbacks. We're talking about 35% right there. We're talking about another 40% right there. So I do think that Bitcoin is gearing up for a relatively nasty pullback overall, but that likely does turn into a long-term opportunity. Do we have another example right here? Pretty damn close. That was in January 2017. So yeah, that was this pullback right here. Hey, where the fuck did you go? There we go. Yeah, about 34% move as well. And then we have this one right here, and I think I already know that this one's about a 40% move. Yeah, about a 39% move right there. So you get the idea, and that is very much a topic of conversation now. So we do see that it's gotten into this region, yes, but now I want to see it get a negative slope. If that happens, I would be looking for one of those greater pullbacks, and that is going to likely bring things back down some. Well, let's see what the numbers would imply here. Let's say that we just shave off like 30% off price action off the current structure. That would bring Bitcoin back down to 17,500 actually. So that is within the cards if this signal does come to fruition, but it's not actionable as it is right now. It will be actionable if it does get a negative slope, as we've seen in the past, because we have certainly lived above that region for quite some times, at most a month, and at least like, just like a few days actually. But it is within the cards. I just want to see this actually confirmed now. So my actionable I guess just my actionable region for that would be one, I want to see a negative slope on this. If you don't have the jewel, how else could you kind of figure this out without having access to that? I'd want to see a local high being confirmed right here, which would then imply bearish divergence because we do have that in play. However, this is not a local high as it is. So how do we confirm a local high? Again, we need to kind of see this closure first, but let's just assume that it closed something like this, which would also be below the topside Toronto band as we saw over here, which currently was trending above. And then it either takes out the low side of this current 3-day dildo, which is about 21,850, marked to the middle on most exchanges. Then yes, I would declare this as a local high and probably move down for $4,000, actually 4,000 plus bucks, which would be pretty damn nice. We'd have 1, 2, 3 drives of bearish divergence right there, and we'd see momentum also just turn back down as well, and we'd very likely see the 3-day jewel turn back down there too. So that would all be good enough for looking for some pretty hefty movements to the downside. Like I said, 2,000, a little bit above 20,000 bucks would be my first sort of bouncy bounce target, and then that area probably does fail, and we do head a little bit lower if that is to happen in the first place. So with that said, going back on over here, I do want to reflect upon this once again. Though the weekly makes me think that this is a little bit less likely. The way that it's currently postured is continuation first and foremost. But then again, I mean, you can get shit like this too. It does happen, a little bit of a rug pull right there. So I would be, I would be open to that, and that's why the areas of interest are very much and very well documented. So that is where my bias does change, and now we have an actual target. You can also look at the non-exponential average on the weekly, which is in the upper $18,000 region as well. So anywhere within there would look about good, and that would probably be the next big opportunity. Now, of course, we do have the monthly close coming in soon enough as well, and actually that would be right around the top side Toronto band. That would be pretty damn nasty if that did happen. I'm not necessarily looking for that to happen though, to be fair with you. I look for this area to hold. At least for now, and if we do see a big bad break below those critical regions, yeah, I'll be quick to switch around. But for right now, the trend is your friend until the end of the trend, and the trend is showing a little bit of signs of weakness here, but overall, I'd still give it the nod to the upside, at least for now. Anyways. But should I? Well, for full transparency, I'd probably tell you that I will be covered below this region if we do close below 22.6 once again. Anyways, let's see. Let's go over traditional markets over here. We're already 26 minutes into this video, and I haven't said shit about traditional. So traditional markets did come down a little bit yesterday. Down all the way to the 21 exponential average. I believe we did identify that on the Forex video, and we said a bounce likely from that region, of which we're getting that right now. I'd be looking for this one to actually swipe once again a little bit further down, at the very least 12,600 is where I'd be looking towards, probably a short-term bounce right there. However, here is now the structure with the advent of yesterday's price action. We do have rising lows coming in from, 12,300, and then yesterday's rising low is going to be 12,500. So as long as we're above 12,500, technically speaking, trend's still your friend, and that should be an opportunity to the downside short term right here. Do I feel that way? Fuck no, I don't. However, if it does take out yesterday's low, 12.5, it even just ticks below there, it's gonna be bad enough. I would extend this move all the way back down to the 200 exponential average, which is gonna be somewhere around a little bit below 12,300-ish region. So I would be looking for that to likely come about. Again, if this area is taken out right here, and how's it going to look like on a daily? Yeah, it's just going to be another test back down to the 21 exponential average, it looks like. So fair enough. We could be looking for a greater pullback based upon this. We do see that historical volatility percentile is starting to actually curl back around here. So if we do go into an expansion phase, for that move, we're also going to be battling bearish divergence, which would be confirmed on the next tick. We'll also see daily Stokes come back down as well, very likely. And that expansion phase would likely bring price action back down to, at the very least, towards 12,150, more medium term. And we do see that rising lows for the daily are coming in alongside the 89 exponential average on the daily right here as well. So that'd be 11,755. So I would keep an eye on that. But again, a few other things need to happen first and foremost. See how the weekly is operating right now. I mean, the weekly is still just a backfill in last week's open, so I do hesitate to get further bearish on this right now. It is very unlikely, or I shouldn't say that it's unlikely, but it is very it's not really historically relevant to be looking for big bad pullbacks on a holiday week, especially the end of the year, because that's typically when everything gets marked up, and everyone wants to feel good about the holidays, and typically things just float onto the upside. Now, was that true 2 years ago in 2018? Fuck no. That was also maybe it's the only time in my memory that I can recall where world markets were under significant pressure into the holiday, into the end of the year, holiday week, like Christmas and New Year's Eve. So with that in mind, I wouldn't be surprised, if world markets kind of stay up on this, on this higher tick, and then if it does want to play out some downside, probably happens early January, and that likely does turn into a major opportunity as well. So it's very difficult to kind of fit in all of the different timeframes and sides of this analysis that play into these calls here. But basically, it's really going to be decided probably on this next weekly closure. That's where a lot of the clarity on the situation likely does come to fruition. But it looks like Bitcoin's already creeping down a little bit right now. Let's see if we do hit that short-term time frame target. I think it's very, very likely right here. It's looking pretty damn good. And then I'm actually curious what caretakers say about this one as well. On the STC, show me my targets, baby. Show me my targets. Yeah, showing upper $21,000 region, which is, I believe, on the 200 right now. Actually, no, that'd be around the 200 in between them, actually. So good confluence right there. I would be looking for a bounce based on this. This is a neutral zone consolidation. So fair enough. I want to see this once again on the Forex video, but short term, very obviously down, and then we'll see where things close and come back to it after that. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? We spoke about NASDAQ. I'm sure that basically the same chart we have on SPY futures as well. Yeah, I'd be looking for a short-term swipe back down to the 21 here at 36.50, and probably a short-term bounce there as well. Hourly's looking very much under pressure though, very, very much under pressure. In fact, 4 hours says we're not stopping there. 4 hours says back down to 36.20ish region, and I'd certainly be more on the side of that as well. Very interesting chart here though. I mean this is for all intents and purposes a pretty damn good response thus far. Interesting. You know what? I'd probably just stick with NASDAQ analysis for now. I don't think that SPY is the more obvious chart. Certainly NASDAQ is. Let's go check out MicroStrategy as well. MicroStrategy getting reaccumulated right here, just as we spoke about. But this one's more or less following Bitcoin. It's not leading Bitcoin. And I think Michael Saylor, once again, triumphantly posting that he bought another, I don't know, like $1 billion worth of fucking Bitcoin, something like that. And it's really good. But at these prices too, I think his average price was like 21,900 or something, something around there. But looking at this right here, I'm still bullish on this one. Popping back up, accumulated along the 21 exponential average as we did speak about earlier this week and last week, and I'd be looking for this one to pop back up towards 338, 339 region, and we are going to see daily Stokes likely turn back up as well, following this same trend line coming in from our lows in June. Actually, draw a little regression through here. So June, October, and November lows, and then perhaps even late December lows as well. Daily RSI, very fucking good here, very constructive and upside implied. So yeah, I'd be looking for a short-term move back up to it's more like 346. Did I say 338 last time? Yeah, it's more like 345 we'll call it. And above this region right here, I mean, that's a macro breakout, and you're going to see a melt up phase for a serious amount of time here. Very likely 550 would be your next macro area, and probably beyond. I mean, this is looking pretty damn good here. At least for a try. What about Link? How's Link doing? Link got a short-term downside move back down to the 21 exponential average on the weekly. I believe we were short-term bearish on this one yesterday, so that one did come to fruition as well. I'd be looking for another swipe to the downside here, though. Short-term, $11.50. Keep in mind, though, it's the monthly that's really going to govern this one, and the monthly is still okay. But depending upon how this month closes, anywhere below $11.50, and I'd actually be targeting moves coming into into January, back down below $10. 8.5 at the very least, and probably even 6.5 actually. So that would be quite nasty. But for right now, I still look at that as an opportunity. I still run with the former assumption until proven otherwise. But short term, yes, would be down, similar to Bitcoin. Mr. Buterin was the big canary in the coal mine yesterday. Remember, we looked at it and it was very obviously bearish. We did say likely coming back down at $600. Where the fuck is my Buterin? Come on, you little shit fuck. There we go. And we did come back down to $600. It looks like. Yes, indeed. Still has rising lows on this one as well, as long as we're above what 550. So again, numbers are numbers can be a little bit deceiving right there, but technically yes. How are we looking like on the short-term time frame? So similar to Bitcoin, I'd be looking for another swipe of yesterday's low, probably back down to about 580 or 590ish region. But does that imply a breakage of there? No. I mean, you can see that the 4-hour 200 simple and 200 exponential average are governing those lows as it is right now. So I would be looking for another opportunity. That also does imply, and more importantly, if we do break this area right here, big bad problems, and I'd be looking for moves back down to 540 and then probably even 500 base over time. But for right now, I'm not bearish on this as far as the higher term timeframes go. Like we said yesterday, that was just a backfill on last week open. So if it does take out that area, yeah, we can talk about some significant downside. Another about 70 bucks to the downside overall at the very least, and potentially even another maybe another $100 to the downside if that area gets broken. But for right now, I still look at this as an opportunity, and I still look at this as likely to long term head up towards 800 plus. Looking at momentum oscillators right here, we are within the midst of a little bit of problems. If this does confirm as a local high, we will have bearish divergence between this one and this point, but that's still going to take at least another week to confirm, so I wouldn't run with that just yet. Interesting though, a lot of things are potentially setting up for some pretty nasty pullbacks here though, to be fair. But anyways, let's go look at the Buterin versus Bitcoin pairing. Know that what's his face? Federal Reserve loves that one. Let's see how this one's doing, because he was in my face last week saying, "Krown, this is where Buterin going to reverse." Nope, it's not. Sorry, I don't mean to call you out like that, man. It's all love, sir. It's all love. But yeah, this is a terrible chart. Whether Bitcoin goes up or down, altcoins versus Bitcoins are down on the whole. Of course, there's going to be a couple big winners here and there, but this is not a double bottom. I very rarely see double bottoms or double tops work out, except for like a short-term move based upon that. In this case right here, could have the same short-term move, maybe back up to 2,700,000 satoshis, but this one is very clearly to the downside on the higher-term timeframes. I'd be looking for really nothing to hold it up on a weekly until about 2,200,000 satoshis. Absolutely abysmal. I'd imagine Litecoin's going to be, oh no, not another lower high. It couldn't be another lower high. It couldn't be another lower high. You mean to tell me that we've been doing lower highs and lower lows ever since the fucking Genesis over here? That can't be true. Charlie Lee would never do this to me, except he would, because he literally tells you that he's going to be dumping red dildos on your face for Christmas. I mean, you got to give credit to him. I mean, he literally tells you that he's going to dump at $400, and then he tells you when he's going to buy at $22. I mean, that's... I have respect for that, man. He's like the best trader in this whole fucking business. But yeah, looking at it right here, I don't know. Does this one have a little more upside? If anything does, Litecoin is kind of set up for it. Still is that bullish divergence present up to 550,000 satoshis. So not bad right there. But what about the dollar pairing? Again, the dollar pairing can pull back a little bit more towards $95. I'd look at that as an opportunity. I believe we said yesterday it pulled back down to $100 likely. We got that already. I would have probably extend this a little bit further down towards about, what was it, 95 or 92? Let's see what the weekly was. Yeah, anywhere between about 95 and 92, and I'd be looking for a bounce there, first and foremost. This is not a bad chart right here, actually. Although, if it does confirm a local high here, well, then you're going to have major hidden bearish divergence, and you're going to have lower highs still, and this one's going to be wrecked all the way back down below $100. But I still run with the form assumption until proven otherwise. Again, what about Ripple? Is that one doing anything different here as well? Ripple USD, nope, not really. Lower highs, lower lows, not good. What about Ripple versus Bitcoin? No. My Rapples going down once again. How could this be? How could Brad Garlickhouse do this to me? Why, Brad Garlickhouse? Why do you put red dildos in my charts all throughout the history of time? Is that hidden bearish divergence as well? Actually, it's, well, yeah, technically kind of would be, but a little bit too far away. But Ripple Rapples, not looking too damn good right there. Dailies in complete fucking free fall. I'd be looking for this one to go for the full retrace. It's a fucking pump. Listen, anytime that you see something like this, pump and dump. This is just abysmal, man. And this has been the history for Ripple. And I'm not trying to like shit on anyone, because I know that there's there's a lot of people around the crypto sphere and just the internet in general that absolutely love Ripple for God knows who knows what why. And anytime that you see a chart like this where it just goes straight up and then straight down afterwards, that is a pump and dump by definition. This is no different over here. It's still pumping and dumping. I'm curious what EOS is doing. Terrible. Neo, terrible. Tron, not as bad, to be fair. Not as bad. What about EOS, though? This one typically gets a good rap, though. But no, still lower lows and lower highs. Looking like a massive descending triangle for the last couple of years here. Yeah, something like that. Hey, get the fuck out of my face. Hold on, let's do it like this. Boom, and there's your lower high structure right there. So still respecting it. Still respecting it, to be fair. I think that kind of gets everything that I want to speak about. Link did hit our low 52,000 Satoshi target. Would I be looking for a bounce here now? That looks like fucking death. I mean, Death Cross told the story out of that descending triangle on the lows. I mean, that was a pretty big call. I probably wouldn't. Look, if it wants to take another leg down, I'd be looking towards 40,000 Satoshis, but I don't. There's no call for me on this one after that. That was a pretty significant move right there. I want to see it kind of spend a little bit of time now. No calls here, no calls. What about Cardano? Terrible. Yeah, coming back down to the prior lows and probably beyond. Gold. Well, we should probably save that for the Forex video. So fuck it. And god damn it, euro dollar popping back up there too. So let's go back on to Bitcoin. And how do we want to set this up? Let me just think about how we want to wrap this bitch up. Do you want to talk about the low term timeframes first and then match it up with the higher term timeframes? Yeah, I think so. Okay, I think that'll be a little bit better. Alrighty, let's wrap this bitch up. Bitcoin on the lower term timeframes. Once again, do I want to explain that? No, we'll only talk about new things. All right, let's wrap this bitch up. Bitcoin on the short term timeframes right here, putting a little bit of a short term redistribution pattern on this ascending triangle on the short term timeframe lows. To be fair, 22,600 still the downside pivot, not just from structure but also from Fibonacci extensions right here as well at 22,600 at the 2-spot extension. So if Bitcoin does break to the downside right here, which is looking rather likely as momentum also turn down once again on the hourly, healthily within the bearish control zone there, I would be looking for another swipe of yesterday's low, maybe a little bit higher than that, but anywhere around about 21,900 or 22,000 even, or sorry, 22,100 right here, and I would be looking for a bounce upon that region. The question is, after that bounce on a 4-hour, does Bitcoin regain the 22,600 level or not? If it does regain the 22,600 level, then I'd be looking for more or less more sideways within this range, still the same range between 22,600 and 24,000 even to the upside alongside the 2-spot 414, and that would still play into the narrative, especially on the 3-day, which is closing today, further continuation of new all-time highs, which technically speaking, we already did get new all-time highs on the 3-day, so that you could say has already been met. But most importantly, if Bitcoin does close above the 3-day topside shoulder band today at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 23,450, then I would be looking for this run to continue for the rest of the week, probably new all-time highs into the mid $24,000 region, which would be the next obvious target at the 2-spot 618 extension right here, and that would be fair enough. But if Bitcoin does break below 22,600, there could be an avalanche of effects. Probably doesn't happen today. If it were to happen, it probably happens maybe starting tomorrow. But if we did close below that region and then either closing below that region or taking out the current 3-day low, which is about 21,850, then I would extend targets quite significantly further south towards a little bit above $20,000 base for a next short-term bounce, and then potential continuation much lower. The reason what I'm basing that off of is both the potential 3-day bearish divergence, if this confirms as a local high, which again, as it is right now, is not in any way, shape, or form. And then also I would be looking at the 3-day Jules, the 3-day Jules signal, which is not a sell signal in and of itself right now, but we are getting a similar signature that has produced some pretty nasty pullbacks in the history of Bitcoin, typically 30% pullbacks when the slowest moving, again, I'll call it an oscillator, but it's not really, gets into the more critical zone. If that does happen, well, as you've seen in 2017, it's typically when we do get a move back down around the 21 exponential average on the 3-day or the weekly, of which that would be significantly lower right now, about $4,000 lower than where we're currently at. So that is a big deal. And if that does happen, I would look for a move down there, but that actually needs to happen first and foremost before I start to look towards there. I still run with the assumption that the trend is your friend right now, and the trend is still to the upside, even on a fucking 4-hour. And with that said, I would still be, if I had to call things right now, here's what I actually think is is going to happen. Yeah, Bitcoin probably does come back down here, swipe around yesterday's low, and then does get bought back on up. Assuming that today closes anywhere above this level right here, I'd be looking for more sideways action. And if we start to see any sort of signs of reaccumulation, I'd be looking for another move back up towards 23,500 right here, and play out the range a little bit more, and probably set up for another breakout to the upside, targeting 24,500 to 25,000 over the next week, or sorry, not this week, but next week, if that were to happen. But of course, all of the levels are very well set out right now, and all the biases and the way that they kind of change around upon those levels is very well documented. So with that said, I'd like to wish you the best. Take care, and until next time.